we are what the future is for women.
Yeah.
And I look at having my daughters.
Most famous actresses in the world. You've starred in movies that millions of people love. You have money, fame, and what looks like a perfect life from the outside. But behind closed doors, you're falling apart. You're struggling with problems that would break most people. And the person you thought would help you through it all, the person you married and trusted with your heart, ends up making everything so much worse. This is the real story of Demi Moore and her marriage to Ashton Kutcher. For years, people only knew bits and pieces of what happened between them. But now, at 62 years old, Demi has finally found the courage to tell her whole truth. And when you hear what really went on, it will break your heart. Most people remember Demi Moore from movies like Ghost, where she played the woman who could still connect with her boyfriend even after he died. Or maybe you know her from G.I. Jane, where she played a tough soldier who shaved off all her hair. These movies made her one of the biggest stars in Hollywood back in the 1990s. She was beautiful, talented, and seemed to have everything going for her. But what most people didn't know was that behind all that success, Demi was fighting battles that no one could see. She grew up in a really difficult home. Her mother had serious problems with drinking and drugs. As a little girl, Demi had to take care of her mom instead of the other way around. She even had to save her mother's life once when she overdosed on pills. Can you imagine being a child and having to deal with something so scary and grown up? All of this pain from her childhood followed Demi into her adult life. She started using drugs and alcohol herself, trying to numb the hurt she felt inside. Even when she became famous and successful, these problems didn't go away. They just got harder to hide. Demi got married twice before she met Ashton. Her first marriage was to a musician named Freddie Moore. That marriage didn't last very long. Then she married Bruce Willis, who was also a big movie star. They had 3 beautiful daughters together, Rumor, Scout, and Tallulah. For a while, it seemed like Demi had found happiness. But even that marriage ended in divorce. By the time Demi was in her early 40s, she was a single mom trying to raise her 3 girls while dealing with her own personal struggles. She was still acting, but she was also getting older in a business that often treats older women unfairly. Hollywood can be a cruel place, especially for women who are no longer considered young. Then, in 2003, something unexpected happened. Demi met Ashton Kutcher at a dinner party. Ashton was 25 years old at the time. Demi was 40. That meant there was a 15-year age difference between them. In Hollywood, it's pretty common for older men to date much younger women. But when an older woman dates a younger man, people talk about it a lot more. Ashton was just starting to become really famous. He was known for playing a goofy character on a TV show called That 70s Show. He was also getting into movies and was known for being funny and charming. When he met Demi, he was immediately attracted to her. And Demi, who had been through so much pain and disappointment, found herself falling for this young, energetic guy who seemed to bring light into her dark world. At first, their relationship felt like a fairy tale. Ashton made Demi laugh in ways she hadn't laughed in years. He was playful and fun, and he seemed to really care about her and her daughters. The girls were teenagers at the time, and Ashton was young enough that he could relate to them in a way that felt more like a big brother than a stepdad. Demi started to believe that maybe this was her second chance at happiness. Maybe this younger man who seemed so full of life could help her heal from all the pain she had carried for so long. She opened her heart to him completely, trusting him with her deepest feelings and biggest fears. In 2005, Demi and Ashton got married in a private ceremony. The wedding was beautiful, and for a moment, it seemed like Demi had finally found her happy ending. She was married to someone who claimed to love her. She had her 3 wonderful daughters, and her career was still going strong. But what Demi didn't realize was that this marriage would end up being one of the most painful experiences of her entire life. And the worst part was that the pain didn't come from big, obvious problems. Instead, it came from 1,000 little cuts that slowly destroyed her self-worth and made her question everything about herself. One of the biggest problems in their marriage was that Ashton wanted Demi to be someone she wasn't. He was young and liked to party. He wanted to go out all the time, drink, and have fun in ways that a woman in her 40s with 3 kids might not always want to do. But Demi loved him so much that she tried to keep up with his lifestyle. This is where things started to go really wrong. Remember, Demi had struggled with addiction before. She had worked hard to get clean and stay sober, but trying to keep up with Ashton's party lifestyle put her back in situations where drugs and alcohol were everywhere. It was like asking someone who was afraid of water to learn how to swim in the middle of an ocean storm. Ashton also had some pretty old-fashioned ideas about what their marriage should look like. Even though he was the younger one, he wanted to be in control. He made decisions about their life together without really asking Demi what she wanted. He criticized her appearance and made her feel like she needed to change herself to make him happy. The worst part was how he treated the age difference between them. In public, Ashton would often make jokes about how much older Demi was. He would call her his old lady, or make comments about her age that seemed playful, but actually hurt her feelings deeply. Imagine being with someone who was supposed to love you, but instead they constantly reminded you of the thing you were most insecure about. Demi started to believe that maybe she really was too old for Ashton. Maybe she wasn't fun enough or cool enough or pretty enough anymore. She began to do more and more extreme things to try to keep up with him and prove that she could be the young, fun wife he seemed to want. This included getting back into using drugs. Demi started using substances again, partly to numb the pain of feeling inadequate and partly to try to fit into Ashton's world. She was taking pills and drinking, and her behavior became more and more erratic. Her daughters watched their mother, who they had seen as strong and successful, slowly fall apart. But perhaps the most heartbreaking part of Demi's story is what happened with intimacy in their marriage. Demi has revealed that Ashton convinced her to participate in situations that made her deeply uncomfortable. He made her feel like if she really loved him, she would do things that went against her own values and boundaries. Demi was so afraid of losing Ashton that she agreed to things that hurt her emotionally and spiritually. She compromised parts of herself that she never should have compromised. And instead of these sacrifices making their marriage stronger, they actually made everything worse. Ashton began to lose respect for Demi because she was willing to do things that even he knew were wrong. It's a terrible cycle. He pushed her to cross lines she didn't want to cross, and then he looked down on her for crossing them. Demi felt trapped and confused. She didn't understand how loving someone so much could make her feel so bad about herself. During this time, Demi's mental health got worse and worse. She was having panic attacks and couldn't eat. She became so thin that people were worried about her health. Her friends and family watched helplessly as she seemed to disappear before their eyes. The final blow came when Demi discovered that Ashton had been cheating on her. After everything she had sacrificed, after all the ways she had tried to change herself to make him happy, he was still betraying her with other women. The worst part was that some of these affairs happened on important dates, like their wedding anniversary. When Demi confronted Ashton about his cheating, he didn't show the remorse or guilt that you might expect. Instead, he made it seem like it was somehow her fault. He suggested that if she had been a better wife, he wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere. This completely shattered what was left of Demi's self-esteem. In 2011, after 6 years of marriage, Demi and Ashton announced their separation. By 2013, their divorce was final. But for Demi, the end of the marriage was just the beginning of a different kind of pain. She had to face the reality of what she had become during those 6 years. She had lost herself completely. The strong, successful woman who had built an amazing career and raised 3 daughters had been replaced by someone she didn't even recognize. She had become dependent on drugs again, and her relationship with her daughters was strained because they had watched her make such destructive choices. After the divorce, Demi hit what she calls rock bottom. She had a seizure from drug use and had to be rushed to the hospital. Her daughters were so scared and angry that they stopped talking to her for a while. This was perhaps the most painful consequence of all, losing the trust and respect of her own children. But sometimes, hitting rock bottom is what it takes for someone to finally start climbing back up. Demi realized that she had to make a choice. She could continue down the path she was on and probably die, or she could find the strength to fight for her life and her relationships with her daughters. She chose to fight. Demi went into treatment for her addiction. She started going to therapy to deal with all the trauma from her childhood and her marriage to Ashton. She began the long, difficult process of learning to love and respect herself again. It wasn't easy. Recovery never is. There were days when Demi wanted to give up. There were times when the pain of facing the truth about what had happened to her seemed too much to bear. But she kept going, partly for herself and partly for her daughters, who needed their mother back. Slowly, Demi started to rebuild her life. She worked on repairing her relationships with Rumor, Scout, and Tallulah. She had to admit to them how badly she had messed up and ask for their forgiveness. Thankfully, her daughters loved her enough to give her another chance, but it took time to rebuild the trust that had been broken. Demi also had to learn how to be single and happy. After years of defining herself through her relationships with men, she needed to figure out who she was when she was alone. This was scary but also liberating. She discovered parts of herself that she had forgotten existed. As Demi got healthier, she also found the courage to start talking about what had really happened in her marriage to Ashton. For years, people had speculated about why their relationship ended, but Demi had stayed mostly quiet. She was protecting Ashton's reputation, even though he had hurt her so badly. But staying silent about abuse and manipulation doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help the person who was hurt, and it doesn't help other people who might be going through similar situations. So Demi decided to tell her story. In 2019, she wrote a book called Inside Out, where she revealed many of the painful details about her marriage to Ashton. She talked about the addiction, the manipulation, the cheating, and the way she lost herself trying to be someone she wasn't. The book was incredibly brave because it meant admitting to the world that she had made mistakes and suffered in ways that were embarrassing and painful. Many people were shocked to learn the truth about what had happened behind closed doors. The public had seen Ashton as this funny, charming guy, and it was hard for some people to believe that he could have treated Demi so badly. But for other people, especially women who had been in similar relationships, Demi's story felt very familiar. Since her book came out, Demi has continued to speak openly about her experiences. She talks about how easy it is to lose yourself in a relationship, especially when you're dealing with your own insecurities and past trauma. She wants other people to learn from her mistakes and not make the same choices she made. One of the most important things Demi talks about is the idea of boundaries. She explains how she let Ashton push her past her own boundaries because she was so afraid of losing him. But she learned that when you don't respect your own boundaries, other people won't respect them either. Demi also talks about the importance of loving yourself before you try to love someone else. She went into her relationship with Ashton carrying a lot of pain and insecurity from her past. She thought he could heal her, but that's not how healing works. You have to do the work on yourself first. Today, at 62 years old, Demi is in a much different place than she was during her marriage to Ashton. She's healthy, she's sober, and she has good relationships with her daughters. She's also become a grandmother, which has brought new joy into her life. She still acts occasionally, but she's more selective about the projects she takes on. She's also become an advocate for addiction recovery and speaks to other people who are struggling with similar issues. She uses her pain to help others, which has given her suffering some meaning. As for Ashton, he moved on pretty quickly after their divorce. He started dating his former co-star Mila Kunis, and they got married and had children together. From the outside, his life looks happy and successful. But Demi's story raises questions about whether he ever really understood the damage he caused or felt sorry for his role in her pain. Some people have criticized Demi for telling her story so publicly. They think she should have kept private matters private. But abuse and manipulation thrive in silence and secrecy. When people like Demi speak up about what happened to them, it helps other people recognize similar patterns in their own lives. Demi's story is heartbreaking, but it's also inspiring. It shows that it's possible to lose yourself completely and still find your way back. It proves that you can make terrible mistakes and still rebuild your life. Most importantly, it demonstrates that your worth as a person isn't determined by how someone else treats you. The age difference between Demi and Ashton became a symbol of their relationship, but the real problem was never about their ages. The problem was about power, respect, and manipulation. Ashton used Demi's insecurities against her and convinced her to compromise her values and boundaries. That can happen in any relationship, regardless of age. What's most heartbreaking about Demi's story is how much she sacrificed trying to make someone else happy, only to discover that it was never going to be enough. No matter how much she changed or how many boundaries she crossed, Ashton was still going to cheat and lie and treat her badly. She gave up pieces of herself for someone who never deserved them. But there's also something beautiful about how Demi has reclaimed her story. For years, other people got to define what happened in her marriage. The media wrote their own versions, and Ashton got to control the narrative. But now, Demi gets to tell the truth about her own life. She gets to explain what really happened and how it affected her. This is incredibly powerful, especially for women who have been in similar situations. So many women lose themselves in relationships with men who don't appreciate them. So many women compromise their values and boundaries, trying to keep someone who isn't worth keeping. Demi's story reminds these women that they're not alone, and that it's never too late to start over. At 62, Demi Moore is finally free from the shame and secrets that kept her trapped for so many years. She's learned to love herself again, something that seemed impossible during the darkest days of her marriage to Ashton. She's proof that you can survive even the most devastating betrayals and come out stronger on the other side. Her journey hasn't been easy, and she's had to face some hard truths about herself and the choices she made. But that's what real healing looks like. It's messy and painful and sometimes embarrassing. But it's also beautiful because it leads to freedom and authentic happiness. The most important thing Demi wants people to understand is that you should never lose yourself for another person. Love should make you feel more like yourself, not less. If someone truly loves you, they won't ask you to cross boundaries that make you uncomfortable or change fundamental parts of who you are. Demi's story with Ashton Kutcher is a cautionary tale about what can happen when you too try to love someone who doesn't know how to love you back properly. But it's also a story of redemption and healing. It's proof that it's never too late to reclaim your life and start over. As Demi continues to share her story, she's helping countless other people who have been through similar experiences. She's showing them that they don't have to stay trapped in shame and silence. They can speak their truth, heal their wounds, and build better lives for themselves. That's the real power of Demi Moore's story. It's not just about one woman's painful marriage and difficult recovery. It's about the universal human experience of losing yourself and finding your way back home. It's about the courage it takes to admit when you've made mistakes and the strength it takes to start over. At 62, Demi Moore is living proof that it's never too late for a new beginning. Her story with Ashton Kutcher may be heartbreaking, but her story of healing and recovery is truly inspiring. She turned her pain into purpose and her suffering into strength. And in doing so, she's given hope to countless others who are still trying to find their way back to themselves. If you found Demi's story as moving and inspiring as I did, please hit that like button to show your support for her courage in sharing such personal details of her life. Her willingness to be vulnerable and honest about her struggles helps so many people who are going through similar situations feel less alone. Share this video with anyone you think might benefit from hearing about Demi's journey of recovery and self-discovery. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories about celebrities who have overcome incredible challenges and found ways to rebuild their lives. Your support helps us continue bringing you these important stories that remind us all that it's possible to survive even the most difficult circumstances and come out stronger on the other side. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.